Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. This is episode 15. As always, Ryan and Corey here to share an awesome episode we have with you today. Actually, we have a special guest, Lauryn Williams, the first American woman in history to medal in both summer and winter games.
She's amazing.
Absolutely amazing, phenomenal person, and definitely knows what she's talking about. Today in our episode, we're going to talk about debt, student loans, and financial planning. I know a lot of people have requested more information on debt and how to get out of student loans, so here's your episode. This one's for you. We're very excited to share.
Yeah, Lauryn transitioned after she medaled in both the Summer and Winter Olympics. First female ever, right? Literally gold medal in like the 100 meter. Just an amazing athlete. Bobsledder.
Silver medal in the bobsled.
Yeah, it's insane. Incredible. I mean, I think the mid 2000s, 2005, 2006. And then she got into managing other athletes' finances. That's how she got her start, because she hired, and she'll talk about in the episode, she hired a financial planner who just didn't do a good job. And then she hired somebody else who did a worse job. So she was like, there's a niche for me to be able to help these other athletes. And now she does student loan planning and financial planning for not just athletes, but everyone. This is going to be an episode that could change the course of, a lot of people's mindset going forward. So we'll bring her in.
Let's bring her in. Awesome. Well, Lauryn, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to have you on. If you could kind of just walk us through maybe a little introduction about yourself, where you're from, and what you're currently doing to help the financial
background story.
Yeah, just background story on you and financial independence.
I would be happy to share more about me. So I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. Split time between Pittsburgh and Detroit growing up because my parents split up. Then went to the University of Miami. Went there on a track scholarship. So something that people might find a slightly interesting about me is that I am a 4-time Olympian. And I'm the first American woman to earn a medal in both the Summer and the Winter Olympics. So kind of stumbled upon track and field growing up, just being outside, being active, and realizing I was faster than the girls my age, than the guys my age, and then guys older than me. And it kind of just unfolded into me getting a really cool opportunity. And my parents always said that education was one of the most important things. And so I wanted to go to college and didn't really know how I was going to do that, coming from a family of 5 sisters and 2 brothers. So I've been working really hard to keep my academics up and make sure that I was going to be eligible for some sort of academic scholarships. But when the athletic realm kind of introduced itself and letters started to come in the mail, I realized this could be a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah.
I'd certainly run around a circle, all day, every day in order to get a $40,000 or $50,000 a year education paid for.
Absolutely.
Can't beat it. We know nothing about that, so that's but that's awesome.
Yeah, so it worked out well. And in my junior year of the University of Miami, I was just trying to win the NCAA championships. And I actually not only won it, but
oh yeah, that was good.
Not only did I win, though, I ran the second fastest time in the world. And so 20 years old, I kind of had to take a sharp left turn and become an adult overnight. So I was getting $1,000 a month as a college student to kind of, make ends meet and, just do college stuff. And then all of a sudden I was a 6-figure earner. I realized, though, that as a finance major, interested in the topic, that as a junior in college, I still didn't know crap about money. So I had enough information to know that I needed to hire someone. And so I hired a financial advisor at the recommendation of a family friend. And it didn't go very well. And more so, I'm not a story of someone stole my money and ran off and all this kind of stuff that you hear about professional athletes. But I realized that there's kind of pretty much one type of advisor in the industry, or most of the industry is made up by one type of advisor. And it's a person that sells you a product and earns a commission for selling that product.
Yep.
Which one creates a conflict of interest, but then on top of that, leads them to only have expertise in one area. And so they sell investment products. They want you to invest your money. We know in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with investing, but what about all these other financial topics that are taking place in our lives? And at 20, when you have no financial literacy and you're earning 6 figures, you need somebody to spend a lot of time with you explaining why or why not to buy a home? What is your budget? Do we have a proper emergency fund? How much should you be setting aside so that you don't get whammy by the IRS when everything comes around? And there's just so many aspects of finances that go into personal finance that you need someone who knows about a little bit about everything and is willing to take that journey with you. So that's kind of how I ended up joining the financial planning industry, was, having not been serviced well by him, hiring another guy, where it actually went worse. That company shut down due to some like fraudulent matters with NFL players and stuff.
Wow.
I was lucky still, once again, not to be like stolen from, but I also was not well taken care of. And so I started to just look back on my finances and lack of a plan and lack of clarity, despite wanting to make good decisions, and say like, okay, I got to get educated about this on my own. What can I do? And literally a Google search is what led me to the certified financial planning coursework. I enrolled in that hoping to get education for myself, and didn't really realize that there was a whole nother part of the profession that is, kind of hiding out in the industry and that a lot of people don't know about. And that it was actually something that I could do for others once I started to learn more about it.
Cool. So you absolutely crushed it as an athlete, won medals of the summer and the Winter Olympics. Then essentially the next chapter of your life begins at a certain point when you stop becoming an athlete and you join the financial. I know you're involved also a student loan planner and a certified financial planner. So how do those coincide? And I guess, what do you do in both of those realms with your clients?
Yeah. So as a full-time entrepreneur, you sometimes have to have a side hustle to the main hustle gets itself going all the way. And so initially I found Student Loan Planner. Well, I have to back up a second. So as I started my own financial planning firm 4 years ago, the very first client, you start with your friends and trying to help them out and just try to, if I do a good job for enough people, the word will start to spread and, you get started there. Well, my very first client that came to me kind of organically, had $350,000 of student loans and was making $150,000 of income. So as a young professional, you're like, $150K is good money. You're a six-figure earner, single, was living in a city with a very low cost of living. Like, you should be able to take control of your finances and do some really awesome things. And she was just strapped with this debt. And I mean, $350,000 is a really nice house in most parts of the country, but you can't live in it. Like,
no, in fact, you're just paying. I mean, I don't even know what you're paying a month on that, but you're paying it and you're getting no return on it, right?
Yeah,
and you already got the return by going to school, but yeah, that's insane.
It's insane to have a mortgage payment that is, like you said, that you can't live in.
Yeah.
And so, I was super excited and gun-ho to do a really good job for my client. And then I was like slapped in the face with this, like, I have no effing idea what to do with this. Like, yikes. This is a lot of debt. And she, like you said, she is making a really good living. So I started to just scour the internet for more information. And I came across a young lady named Heather Jarvis, who is pretty much like the godmother of student loans in the financial industry and did a lot of lobbying on behalf of borrowers. She's actually like one of the big proponents for getting the income-driven plans putting into place so that people have more affordable options available to them. And so I started to take her classes and courses and seminars and things. But then I just said, like, this is not enough. I need to really know this because my target market is struggling with these student loans. And so I said, can you let me be your intern? In the midst of running my own business, I asked to intern because I wasn't too proud to, work for free to get the knowledge that I needed. And student loans just now is getting a certification. So it's called the CSLP after years and years. Other than that, it's been pretty much self-taught up to this point. So I was self-teaching via Heather Jarvis.
Got it.
And it was a great experience, but it led me to Student Loan Planner, where I'm currently side hustling, just because I had done the research and gotten the information and started kind of advertising a little bit about it. And I asked Travis Hornsby, who's the owner of Student Loan Planner, to be on my podcast because I don't like to talk at my audience. I love for it to be a dialogue back and forth about the various things the various topics that I think are important to the audience. So I thought he'd be great to have on the podcast. He did his research on me before coming on the podcast and said, like, my business is growing and I need someone else that knows this stuff. Looks like you've done quite a bit on it. I could train you in my business and, we could be a great team. So that's kind of how it was born.
Like that's networking in 2020 right there for you, right?
Exactly.
But like that's how it works. Like you put your message out, have somebody on your podcast or vice versa, and then now you're forming a business partnership. I think student loan planning is a good place to start with what you do. Um, we talked about this. You helped my girlfriend out with her student loans. We've had so many inquiries on, DM to us and say, can you do a podcast on student loans? And I said, well, I am the first person to tell you that I am so blessed. I have very, very minimal student loans. I have them basically, my parents gave them to me as a principle to say, like, you should pay this off. When my parents pay for college, I'm thankful every single day for it. And I think Ryan is in the same boat with that. So like, we're like, we're not going to talk about this. We don't have the knowledge. We didn't have student loans, but we want to talk to someone who works with people every day.
Why not get a multi-time Olympian to come on and chat with us and drop some knowledge on everybody?
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the questions that a lot of our guests have is there a baseline sort of route that people would go? And I kind of have my own opinions basically from the knowledge that you gave me in if you have about the same amount of student debt as you earn versus if you have double the amount of student debt as you earn versus if you have half the amount of student debt as you earn. Is there a baseline of how should people attack it just from,
beginner stage?
Yeah, a beginner stage, exactly.
Yeah. So let's start with some, like you said, kind of benchmarks. Generally, if you have less than $50,000 of student loan debt, you're probably going to be in the boat of pay your debt off and get rid of it as quickly as possible. So
right.
50,000 is, a nice pickup truck nowadays. Maybe even not even a nice one, probably a mid-grade pickup truck.
Yeah.
But it's an affordable amount. While it sounds like a lot of money, and we don't want to diminish that. That's a painful thing to be paying off. It is something that you can do on a monthly basis in an affordable way, but then also just tackle and get that to zero. So if you're in that less than 50K boat, you're generally in a boat to pay it off. Then you brought up another good point. What if you owe double what you earn? So, or even triple sometimes. So we see all the time people that are earning $50,000 or $60,000 and they have $180,000 of student loan debt. Well, there's this thing called taxable forgiveness. So you first have to have federal loans in order to be able to take advantage of a lot of the programs that exist. So if you only have private loans, then your only option with private loans is to pay them off.
So what you're saying is you can't take your federal loans and refinance, because once you refinance, you're out of the federal loan program. So there is a benefit to keeping your federal loans in this sense, right?
Yes, exactly. And so you need to know what camp you in. Are you in the pay them off quickly camp? If so, then it might be okay to take your federal loans and refinance them with a private company. The benefit to doing so being that you get a lower interest rate. So I'm going to get a lower interest rate by going with a private company, but my only option at this point is to pay them back. So you need to know that you're in that, all right, let's pay them back camp before you jump off of that ledge.
Yeah.
However, if you're not so sure and you're having a hard time paying your loans, the first thing I would do is say, check your monthly budget. A lot of times people reach out to us and they're, my student loans are ruining my life. They're not allowing me to save. They're not allowing me to, get ready for retirement. I want to buy a home. I want to do all these things. And we start looking at their budget. And their housing is 50% of their income.
Right. I was going to say that, or they have the nicest car in the world, like
exactly. They got a $400 or $500 a month car payment, and the student loans. And so it's kind of, they're looking for one thing to blame, and the student loans are the least fun of those things. So it's the student loans' fault. But you really got to understand what your budget is, understand what's, affordable, not be too proud to get a roommate or to, live in the lesser part of town for a while. You got a lot of different financial priorities to tackle. So you want to make sure you understand those.
Cool.
And then you may be in that, like you said, pay it back boat. But then there's also, like I said, a large part of the population. And it's funny because I was just actually prior to this podcast talking to someone about, the Dave Ramsey's of the world. And so Dave really good budgeting advice, but he does not give very good pay off your debt as it pertains to student loan advice.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
He's a one size fits all debt is bad, pay it off. Well,
and if you're him, I don't like agree with, I agree. I think he's amazing. I don't agree with everything he says because we invest in real estate and I'm not going to buy real estate in cash when I'm 28, 29, So like, But
Exactly.
I do think he's great. I'm just saying you have to know yourself, sort of. It's kind of
Yeah, I mean, you have to look into the information and make sure you understand, like you said, your customized situation. So, like you said, I'm not saying it to get on them either. It's just like, let's go back to the young lady I gave you as an example. 150 of income, $350,000 of student loan debt. Twice her income is 300,000. So she owes more than double what she makes.
Yep.
It is a tall feat to go ahead and try to pay your loans off when that is your situation. And these income-driven repayment plans give you the opportunity to pay what you can afford based on your income. And as your income goes up, your payment will go up. But that payment will always be affordable because it's already tied to a small amount of whatever you're bringing home on a monthly basis. What happens, though, is that at 20 or 25 years, depending on which plan you're on, the loans will be forgiven. So let's say that you need to be paying, as an example, $3,500 a month in order to pay your loans off over a 10-year period. Well, an income-driven plan is going to be over 20 or 25 years. So it's stretched out over a longer period of time. You're going to be paying on them, and you're going to be paying far less than that $3,500 a month. It's tied to your income. So it could be even like $100 or $200 a month.
Right.
So if you're paying $200 a month, and in order to get them paid off, you need to pay $3,500 a month, you see there's a gap. Your loans are growing. That amount is just piling up on you month after month after month. And the loans are actually going to end up 20 years from now being bigger than they started out, which is terrifying for people.
Seriously.
But yeah, if it's all forgiven, then that could be great. Now the caveat is
the tax bump, right? Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about, because my girlfriend was talking. That's actually the route that you suggested that she go. She's on a forgiveness plan. She makes around the amount she has in student loans. But you got her on the forgiveness plan, but she's got to save up that tax bump. Can you just talk a little bit about what that is if you are on the forgiveness plan?
Exactly. So one of the big things that you need to be considerate of is this idea that if someone's going to forgive $500,000 of student loans 20 years from now, or even $150,000 of student loans now, the government is going to say it's forgiven, but it's going to look like income on your tax return in that year. So if your loans have grown to 500,000,
for the 1 year, right?
Sorry,
Just for the 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. Just in that 1 year. So you get to the 20-year mark and they say you still owe us 500,000 in that year. Let's say you make 50,000 as your regular job. You're going to have the 50,000 with your regular taxes coming out. But on top of that, on your tax return, it's going to look like you made 550,000 total.
Almost like a balloon payment.
It's a balloon.
And you're going to have to pay taxes.
You're going to have to pay $200,000 worth of taxes, essentially.
Exactly.
So what does that mean, forgiven? You're not really forgiving anything. Well, that's brutal. Seriously.
I mean, I guess what it does is it gives people a prolonged approach where they can save more and more.
You can save that bulk amount.
Lauryn literally told Allie, make an investment account, put X amount of dollars. This is the amount you need to make the balloon payment.
Cool.
And then Allie said, okay, I'm going to do that and then double it so that when I make the balloon payment, I still have more money in my investment account. You know what I mean?
Ooh, so we got her momotivated to save.
Hey, you have no idea, Lauren. Like, you really don't. She's rocking now, which is great. She's got her finances in order, so it's good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with our age group too, is that
how old are you, by the way, we didn't even say that.
You never ask a lady.
What are you? I'm just kidding. How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we're. Oh my God, Rye's gonna be 30.
Coming up on the big 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, we didn't mean to cut you off, but you said our age group, and we are in like that millennial-ish.
20, 30. Yeah, exactly. I'm an old millennial, but I'm still a millennial.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you.
But that one of the things is that we understand we need to be saving, but it's not the biggest priority because we don't feel the urgency of like retirement being 5 days down the road. And so to get motivated to start putting that money away, and exactly like the way that Allie did is, hey, I'm going to have this much. If I just save $150 a month, I'm going to have 100,000 20 years from now. Oh, well, I can save $150 a month for myself in addition to $150 for these student loans. Yep. And now she's like super motivated because she understands that the compounding interest and how it's going to work. Exactly. So it's a really cool thing when you sit down and you actually take care of your finances and kind of take that inventory the way that Allie did, so that you can say, okay, here's where I am, here's where I want to go, and here's my roadmap to get there. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on as young professionals.
Absolutely.
So does your company specifically take a different approach than what you might find in the market? Like, are you working hands-on with them specifically? I think we talked about like a financial planner where they have a certain agenda, right? And they clash. I guess that's a part of your company, and how do you take on your clients?
Yeah, so the kind of other prong of, the way I earn income. So student loan planning is one thing. That's a 1-hour consultation where we can, change your student loan life in literally 60 minutes. We also do offer kind of basic budgeting advice during that call and just, kind of point out things that are red flags to us. But on the other kind of hand, I also help people organize their finances, and that is all aspects of it. So like you said, if you're ready to invest and you need to figure out how to do that, where to do that. I'm a registered investment advisor. I do not make any commissions. So that's what I was talking about as it pertains to like the other part of the market earlier. So if you earn a commission, it's like, I might want to sell Ryan this investment versus that investment, even though the other investment is cheaper, because I'm going to earn a bigger commission if I could put you in that. By getting rid of the commission altogether, that gets rid of the conflict of interest, and it allows me to do what's best for you no matter what.
Perfect.
So the way I charge my client is a flat fee based on their income. And I help you with all aspects of your finances for that. So like I said, if you've never made a budget before, let's make a budget. Let's sit down and let's go line item by line item. Let's understand like where that black hole of spending is, because we all have one. It's like, we know rent, we know car, we know, whatever these obligations are, but then there's like money left over that, is the movies or the concerts or the whatever.
Right.
It's not to say you can't have those things, but you don't want to not know where $1,000 or $1,500 of your income is going every month. You want to say like, I can YOLO with 500 of it. The other 1,000 is my ability to save, and then you automate that. So biggest tip that I would give you guys, anybody listening, is automate your savings and pay yourself first. Like if it's already swept out of your account, you're good to go. That money doesn't exist, and now you can spend a little bit more freely with whatever's left over.
I think that's a really good point, Lauren. And what's interesting about what we talk about here is that we talk about the financial independence community, which is not everyone wants or feels the need to be financially independent. So, but the American average of savings is like 3%, right? I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, but I actually strive for between 30 and 40%, like, because I'm really trying to push for financial freedom in the next 10 years. We talk about this, like, I want that, but not everyone does. And that's totally okay. But the way I look at 3% is like, you got a long way to go. It's going to be really hard to even think about investing. And what you're doing with your approach with Worth Winning, which is the company that you own, is we're not even talking about investing yet. That might be the next stage, right? The first stage is like, you have to get control of your budget and your savings. So what would be your recommendation for people that maybe they don't like want to strive to retire by 40, but they want to get ahead of maybe the rest of the average? So is 3% good? Is 5% good? Is 10? Is 20? What is your take on that? And I'm sure it varies for different people.
I don't want anyone to wreck their car when I say the number, but it's not single digits. Like you said, if you're doing 30 to 40%, you're on the fast track.
Yeah.
The slow track is 20% of income. And so when you mention that 3%, you're exactly right. That is what most people are doing, and they're far behind on retirement.
Yep.
So what that leads to is them getting to their 50s and trying to hurry up and ramp it up, which is sometimes hard because now they've already increased their cost of living. They've got children in the household. They've got education expenses, et cetera, for them. And it's just hard to find that money. If you automate from the very beginning at an early age and just say, I don't make 20% of whatever I bring home, it just does not exist. And you can only live within your means based on that 80% that's left over. And as income increases, you continue to do the same thing. You'll already have set it and forget it to be on track for a normal retirement age.
So I think a lot of people, when they think of saving right away, they think of, okay, I need to at least write it down, right? Like people go in Excel. There's a couple programs that Corey and I are familiar with, Mint, the platform, then Personal Capital. Does your company use something specific? Do you have something built out, or do you recommend people go to a certain platform to get training before they actually have someone that works hands-on with them?
Yeah, so it just kind of depends on where you are in your journey. So sometimes you don't have income to pay someone. If you truly don't have extra dollars in your budget and you just cannot find any dollars to pay someone, you can try a nonprofit organization. So moneymanagement.org is one. Take Charge America is a second one. There's one more. Oh, E15 is the third one. So those are all nonprofit organizations where you can get help organizing your finances. But then there's also, like you said, you got to take some responsibility, whether it's taking responsibility by, getting on Google and finding the information, getting on an app and figuring it out yourself. There has to be some, I take ownership of this, and it's important enough to me that I'm ready to engage in the process. Whether you hire a financial planner or DIY it, it's going to require you getting some level of involvement. So the app that I like to use for budgeting is called You Need a Budget. It's $84 for the year, so roughly $7 a month. It sounds like a lot for an app, like $84 for an app, but you got to think of it as more of a software and something that can change your financial life. And for me, it truly did change my life. As I was going through that process of learning about my finances and getting organized, to be able to, like you said, take inventory. Like you said, Mint is the free version of YNAB. There's a few features that are missing from Mint, but it can work just fine. So if you're trying to do it on a budget, like you're not trying to spend a lot of extra money, start with Mint.
Mint's great.
Netflix is done. Take that out.
I love Mint. I don't even pay for budgeting, but I also like train my mind in a way to be disciplined about it. And I think that's some of the things that it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around. I have a lot of people in my life. They're like, well, I don't understand money, or I'm not good with money, and it's like you're missing out on a piece that can. Like, this is what runs the world. Fortunately or unfortunately, like, this is how the world works. So you don't have to love it, right? But you really have to understand it. Or like you said, you're going to get to your 55 and be like, well, I want to retire when I'm 65 and I missed 30 years of compounding interest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about budgeting, the next step pops into someone's mind is the word investing. And they get afraid. They're like, whoa, I don't even know how to manage my own money. How can I even think about going into a market that is so fast paced and ever changing and invest more of my money and potentially lose it all? So I think Corey and I's approach is like, even if you have debt, we are still comfortable investing. But I think the majority of people may think otherwise. They say, I have to pay off my debt first. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I would say it depends on what kind of debt you have. We talk good debt versus bad debt sometimes. And, mortgage and student loans are things that are usually, kind of 6-figure debt that you can't just pay off overnight. You don't want to put things on hold while you try to pay those off over 20 years. You're going to be in a world of trouble. But when we talk bad debt, it's credit card debt. And I put the car kind of in the medium debt, sort of, if we're going red, yellow, green. Red is credit card debt. Get that off your plate for sure. Yellow being the car, where it should be something you can pay in full, and then you ride that car till the wheels fall off.
Yep.
And then the green being, like you said, student loan debt, mortgage debt, things that are going to take you a little bit longer to tackle. So I would say if you have credit card debt, that definitely needs to become a number one priority, or a personal loan of some sort. A lot of people have those care credit cards for medical expenses. Anything that's charging you a lot of interest, double-digit interest rates, that's the stuff you want to prioritize over probably starting to invest, with the caveat being, if you work at a regular employer and they offer some sort of match. So generally an employer will offer 3 or 6% match, somewhere in between that. And you don't want to leave that free money on the table. So as we talk about compounding interest, like you said, that 3% of your income is a small bit. And if we're talking about you should be saving 20%, then you still got 17, even if you put this 3 away right now, to be working on your credit card debt. So don't leave that 3% on the table, because the employer's matching it, which is giving you 6% saved. Or if they do 6% and you're doing 6%, now you got 12%. You're doing something awesome for yourself while working on your credit card debt. Once that credit card debt is gone, though, you got to up your savings rate immediately and get that money invested.
That's awesome. I think you talked about 401k and, in the match. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that'll be listening as well. And I think, hey, I might not be employed. I'm self-employed. What's your recommendation for them? I've heard things, I think it's like a personal 401k, solo 401k. Is that something nice, Core?
Yeah.
Is that something you recommend, or just, I'm sure people would be intrigued to hear, your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, always about simplicity. So how can I make my financial life the most simplistic? And so there's a solo 401k, there's a SEP IRA, and then something else that's really trendy in our age group, once again, is the Roth IRA. So if you've not been saving at all, and you're just getting started and you're like, I can do about $50 a month, $100 a month, something like that, you can start with something as simple as a Roth IRA. It's very easy to set up online on your own. The solo 401k, you usually need a financial advisor to set up. And the SEP IRA, there's a few different websites. So like I think a Personal Capital will also, Betterment is a really easy company that you can just click, go, and you can set up a SEP IRA. I'm not so much a big proponent of telling you which one of those three to choose. It depends heavily on the amount of income you're bringing in and the amount you can save. It's just like getting started and automating it. Put some money away somewhere ASAP.
So kind of complex one here for you. So once you hit a certain, you're making a certain amount of money per year, you can no longer invest in a Roth IRA, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure exactly what that percentage is, but my kind of conflict was, okay, I'm investing in a 401k, but I also previously set up a Roth IRA. And once I hit that certain benchmark, I was like, did I just waste my time pumping money into the IRA? Because the compound interest is still going to keep going, the compounding effect, but I just don't know where to shift up the money. When do I stop one? When do I keep going? I think people are going to wonder about that as well.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would say, so it's 139 if you're single, and it's 206 if you are married for when it starts to phase out. But it doesn't actually prohibit you from still contributing to a Roth. What happens is you can't just go straight in the front door. So there's this term that people use called the backdoor Roth, where you put money in a traditional IRA and then you move it over to the Roth IRA. So that's one option. But like you brought up a really good point, Ryan. And it's like I said, when I say keep it simple, do the things that are easily available to you. So if you have an employer, you can put $19,500 away per year. If you've not hit that number yet and you're not saving $19,500, you have an easy retirement account that you can use right there that, doesn't require any real expertise. They have a bunch of options. You can pick I'm going to retire in 2050. So you pick the target date 2050 fund. No expertise, just set it and forget it. Try to get your 19,000 saved first before opening this account and that account and another account and a brokerage account. There's tons of different types of investment accounts, but as an employee, the best thing you can do is take advantage of your employer account first and then move on. Once you've made it to 19,500, let me also open a Roth. Like I said, if you're not if you have no ability to save, or you have very little ability to save, and you're an entrepreneur, you're in some sort of job that doesn't offer a 401k or a 403b or any other retirement account, that's when the Roth comes into play right out the gate.
Cool. So just to touch back on the investing when you have debt, and this is just a theory that I have. It does not pertain to everybody, but it's just, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. You mentioned paying off your highest debt first, right? If you have a credit card you're getting 25% interest, you got to get rid of that shit. Like that's the biggest thing. It's got to go. So, but if you have a student loan debt that is 5% interest, right? I don't know, that may be high, that may be low. I'm not entirely sure, but if you have student loan debt that's 5% interest and you have it for the next 20 years, but you can make 8 to 10% in the stock market, it would make sense to me to continue to invest in the stock market while you're paying off your student loan debt because you're getting a higher return. Is that some advice that you would potentially give to people based on the APR percentage of their loan debt?
I would not. So
okay, good.
So this is the thing. It's like my belief is that if you're doing 20 years, you're going for taxable forgiveness, and at that point you can pay the minimum. So like in your scenario, that 5%, all you're paying is based on your income anyway. So that interest is just growing, and you're not trying to pay the loans off.
Yeah.
So it's okay in that regard to, yes, load up your retirement accounts, load up your investment accounts, and redirect that money somewhere else. What I would not suggest, though, is planning to pay your loans off in full, and not go for the forgiveness, and to pay the minimum on your loans, and then try to beat whatever that interest rate on your loans is by the market. Okay. So if you're trying to, like I said, if you're on a 10-year repayment plan, and even if you choose, so I wouldn't choose a 20-year and pay my loans in full. I would only choose a 10-year or less. 10, okay. 7, 5 are the things you want to do when you're thinking about like paying your loans off in full. Cool. And when I choose that, I want to try to like race myself to being done sooner rather than later and getting it off my plate, so I can minimize the amount of interest I pay on that and then start redirecting that money toward my investment accounts. Stretching it out over 20 years and paying it in full is you've paid a boatload of money on these loans, and it does work similar to like the compounding interest. Like you've just diminished so much of your return. In addition to, like you said, you had to make this payment the whole time. You could have instead paid for a shorter period of time, got this off your plate, and then started taking advantage of compounding interest. So, I would.
Great advice. It's great advice. I love to hear other people, especially somebody who owns their own company, teaching or mentoring people in this stuff, just their advice. Cause like I said, I'm blessed with student loans. I just paying them off as fast as I can because I only had a minimal amount, but there's a lot of people who are not in my situation. So.
Agreed. And I think some people's head may be spinning when we talked about a bunch of different investment accounts, right? Or vehicles. For someone, I've heard a lot of diversify. And then other people are like, no, pick your lane, stick with it and go. What is your take on this?
That might be her. You might have to
I know,
bring her on as a client for that.
And everyone's situation is different. I know.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get free game here, but I just want to know kind of your thoughts.
Yeah. So, to make your life easy, what I would recommend is index funds. So index funds follow the market. There are already pools of investments. So individual stocks and bonds are in that pool of investments. Somebody's already created a portfolio for you. So you are diversified and you can just pick one with confidence and say like, okay, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm headed. I don't need to know a lot about the market. I know that I'm in it. I know that it's well diversified and they're very low cost. So ETFs or index funds, ETF stands for exchange traded fund. There are also some very low cost mutual funds, but you need to be careful when you dive over into the mutual fund world because they can get a lot more expensive than ETFs. So they're very similar in the sense that they're a pool of investments that someone is looking after. But they're not following the index. Someone is saying like, okay, I want, this stock in, I'm pulling that one out and I'm putting that one in. And because someone is actually behind the scenes choosing the things, not just one person either. I don't want to make it sound like it's a company that's behind the scenes, but it's being actively managed and those people all need to make a living. So it's going to make the fee associated with investing with in that fund, a little bit more expensive. And that's one thing a lot of people don't realize either is that when you choose indexes, ETFs or mutual funds that, someone has put it all together. So there's an expense ratio related to that. That's not the same thing as the commissions that we were talking about earlier. That's a ratio that's specific to whatever the investment product is that you're getting. That's not because of buying or selling or the person that's doing that on your behalf. The commission would be if I decided to buy that mutual fund for you. So there's going to be an expense ratio that's related to the fund that I chose for you, but then I, as the advisor, need to get paid and I would get some sort of commission. So don't confuse those two things. Expense ratios are something you pretty much almost can't avoid, whereas commissions are something that you can avoid.
Got it. So mutual fund, just to give an example, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know as much as you do, essentially. So would you say that a stock of like Amazon, Visa, Google, and those stocks are pooled together and you're essentially buying shares of each of them, correct?
Exactly. So you buy a share of the mutual fund, but within that mutual fund has Apple, Visa, what was the other one you said?
Google, Amazon.
Yeah, all those things, all the little fancy places. Yeah, they're all in there. So you don't need to go out and buy one stock of Amazon or 5 stocks of it or whatever. And the thing about it is a lot of people like to try to do that. They're like, oh, well, I heard, the airline industry crashed right now because of COVID. I'm going to go buy a whole bunch of airline stocks because I know they're going to come back up. While that may be true, you are now stuck monitoring day by day what happens with the airline industry. Is it up? Is it down? Yeah. And, everything is tied to that one thing because that's all you own right now.
Yep. Why
not own, 50 different things and be able to take advantage of everybody's hurting right now and all the markets are going to go back up and, be able
That's the diversification you're talking about.
Exactly.
Right? Cool. A lot of our guests talk about the ones who wanted to understand their student loans and what they could and couldn't do. Or one of the major questions they have is buying a home when you have student loans, and how does that affect your opportunity to buy, your debt to income ratio? And I don't know the answer, so that's why we have you on. What is the maybe there's a rule of thumb, maybe there's not. Maybe it takes a deeper dive into each specific person's scenario, in which case they can contact you at Worth Winning and find that out. But do you have let's say I round numbers, I make $50,000 a year and I have $50,000 of student loan debt. How does that affect my opportunity to buy a home with my significant other or not?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, and we do get it quite a bit. The way that they look at student loans, so first of all, student loans are what we call installment debt. So similar to a mortgage, it is a one set amount that shows up on your credit report. As long as you're paying on time on a monthly basis, you're ending up with good credit because you're paying as agreed upon. The difference from installment debt would be revolving debt. And a credit card is what we call revolving debt. So that's kind of like a monthly window. They're checking up every month. You know, did you pay? Is your balance going up? Is it going down? Is there interest and fees, etc.? It's completely different with installment debt versus revolving debt. And they're going to be monitoring, like you said, your utilization. So if you have a $10,000 limit on your credit card and you're using $1,000, that looks more favorable than if you're using 9,000 of your 10,000.
Absolutely.
Completely different for student loan debt because it's just, here's the flat amount that you owe. Are you paying on time or not?
Okay.
And so that works favorably when it comes time to purchase a home because what they're doing is saying like, okay, this is how much you owe. That's fine. How much are you paying on a monthly basis? So in the situation where we talked about these people that might be going for the taxable forgiveness, they're going to have a low student loan payment on a monthly basis, but they may have a high balance. And so you're like, oh my goodness, if they look at this $300,000 that I owe, I'm never going to be able to get a mortgage because I only make $50,000 a year. What they're actually going to be looking at is how much do you pay on that debt on a monthly basis? So if your payment is $50 a month and, you have another $2,000 or $3,000 of discretionary income or money for your housing, et cetera, that looks a lot better than a $5,000 a month payment and you can, barely make ends meet. So they're looking at basically the monthly payment, not your total loan balance when it comes time to purchase the home.
So is it more favorable then to be in that scenario, to be in a loan forgiveness program, being that it takes up less of your debt?
Yes, I'm going to say unfortunately, yes. And the reason I say unfortunately is because a lot of people jump on the income-driven plan to take advantage of that to purchase the home, but they won't have their finances organized. So
Yep.
I said there's a lot of people in America right now that just want the low payment. They're not saving for that tax bomb. So that's one thing they needed to be taken care of. They don't
I
have
don't
an
think a lot of
emergency.
people know about the tax bomb. Like it's like when you told me in Alley, I was like, oh wow. So it's not like you said, it's not really forgiven on that 1 year you're gonna be making on your income state that big bump. So
Exactly.
it's wild.
Yeah, so it's like, I feel like the government, created this workaround so people can continue to buy because obviously the mortgage industry is very important.
Yeah.
And I want people to be able to purchase homes, but I want them to be able to do so responsibly. So it's important that, if you are on an income-driven plan, that, like I said, you have a clear budget before you purchase a home, you have an emergency fund before you purchase a home, and you don't just take whatever they approve you for. So you might have this really low payment, which allows you to, be approved for a larger mortgage balance, but now you're house poor and every month you're paying this really big mortgage and, you put yourself in a tougher situation than you probably should have. So I like to just remind people to be mindful that, while home purchasing can be a great thing, you want to make sure you have, the kind of orders of operation taken care of before you do that.
Yeah. So paying off your credit card debt, that's like, if we're going to, put it all together here, pay off that credit card debt, save 20% of your income. Like there's a lot of people that I know that are about to be financially free or on that path that save 60, 70% of their income. You don't have to do that to live a great life. Right. But save 20% at the minimum. And I think that's going to surprise people actually. Like, I think that's going to be a shock to a lot of people's system that 20% is but if you do that, you're going to be in good shape. That's what you're saying. I think that if you save 20% of your income, I'd like to save more and will save more, but I think if you save 20, you put yourself in a great position
You're on the right path.
Yeah, you're really on the right path. So it's good to have that
Exactly.
baseline. Cool.
Yeah. And it's like, knowing is half the battle. Like you said, half of what we've talked about today is stuff that people just don't know. They don't know that there's a tax bomb. They don't know that they need to be saving 20%. They never heard any numbers anywhere. So they're just kind of going along month to month and living their life. And the other thing we didn't talk a lot about tonight was the emergency fund.
Yeah.
I always recommend that people have 3 to 6 months of take home pay. So that's a little bit different than what you'll read online. A lot of people say 3 to 6 months of expenses. Expenses being cover the mortgage, make sure you can eat, and lights or water stay on or whatever.
Yeah.
I say 3 months of whatever you're bringing home, because ideally some of what you're bringing home you're saving. So if you save 3 times that amount, you have a lot more wiggle room should an emergency happen. And the thing I like to think of is for people that have kids or, other things kind of like discretionary is you lose your job and you got to, spend some time looking for a job. You don't want to disrupt your household by telling your daughter that she can't go to soccer.
Absolutely.
Because you only have 3 months of expenses, and that's more discretionary. That's not a real expense. You'd love to keep the stability of your household going so that, there's less disruption, even in a time where, income is uncertain. And you're probably going to have the natural inclination to pull back on your expenses and lower discretionary things. But wouldn't it feel nice to not tell your daughter she doesn't have to get out of soccer because we only have this much save and it's, a dire situation sort of thing. You can have some discretion in that time. The other reason that the 3 months exist, a lot of people always say like, well, why is it 3 months? 3 months is how long it takes for your disability to kick in, your long-term disability. So some professionals, we are far more likely to become disabled than we are to kick the bucket. So we should have life insurance, but we definitely need disability insurance. And if you were to suffer something that was catastrophic, you would have this 3-month window before that long-term disability kicked in and started offering you some income that you'd have to cover for yourself. So that's where it originally came from.
Interesting.
3 to 6 months. So a lot of people have different opinions on that, but I think you're right. I think 3 to 6 months is a good baseline, and it can certainly put people on the right track. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So this is the time, if you're listening to this podcast, take control, because I feel like it just takes that weight off of you. It just frees you up. Like we talk about doing what you love, right? How can you do what you love if you can't even control what you're doing every day because you're so concerned about your next paycheck?
You need to know your numbers. And I think making it automatic, it almost takes that burden off your shoulders. So you're not thinking, oh, I got to transfer this, I got to pay this. It's like, it's done. I know I'm getting paid. I know they're getting paid. And then you can start amplifying your savings and pumping them into different investment vehicles. I wanted to ask you, we've talked about, the nest egg right now, and like the world's kind of in a shakeup. Yeah. Has COVID changed your approach in any way to, paying off student loans and kind of guiding people in their path to financial independence?
Yeah, I've actually done quite a bit of media and stuff around, managing your finances during this pandemic. And I'd say kind of the top 3 things that I've been suggesting to people is, one, slow down on paying down the debt. The reason being that you don't know, we're all in a period of uncertainty. So a lot of people have not lost their income, and it's been awesome. And it's been, right. Like it's a really cool thing and a blessing if you're able to keep your income up to this point. But we don't know how much longer this is going to last. We don't see a real end in sight, and we know that it's going to have a lasting economic impact. So to hit the pause button on being really aggressive about some of the debt. So credit card debt you can still tackle, but like student loans as an example, a lot of people are just like, well, what do I do? Should I keep going? Put that money into a savings account. So, if you were already putting an extra $500 towards your student loans, go ahead and put that in a separate account and keep piling it up so that you're not really getting behind per se, but kind of wait for things to stabilize before because if you've made that big chunk to your student loans, there's no way to call them back and be like, hey, I lost my job. Can you give me some of that money back? Because
that doesn't fly.
Yeah, you have less debt, but at the same time, they're still going to want the payment the next month. And you're like, if you are in a job that does not have stability, and even to be mindful and honest with yourself about where there might be instability. You're like, I do a great job. I'm a wonderful employee. They're never going to furlough me. We have seen unemployment rates go as high as they have been in a very long time. And it's not about you being a good or a bad employee right now. Companies that did not organize their finances appropriately or have just been hit really hard by everything that's happened are just having to make changes. So don't think you're invincible.
Yeah, exactly. It's oftentimes, unfortunately, it's about their bottom line, and they're not in a time like this. People get scared. Companies get scared. So we talked about a lot of things here. Is there, and by the way, I think that this episode has proven that like Lauryn really knows what she's doing and really can help people not only with their student loans, but with just personal finance in general. her company worth winning. And at the end, we'll get your information so people can reach out to you, because I'm assuming that you're still looking for clients and taking on new challenges and stuff like that. So we will definitely give you a shout out at the end. Normally we do. First of all, did you think you left anything out, other information that you wanted to share? But we're going to give you that opportunity because we don't have any specific other questions except one. We got one. But do you think that there's anything that you'd want to, that you might have left out?
Yeah, I would just say with the pandemic, they said the other two things that I was going to say were lowering your expenses. So to, just do that inventory if you haven't done one in the past. And even if you have done one in the past, to do it again now, it's a really good time to say like, oh, I got Netflix, Hulu, and Spotify. I don't need all three. Which one can I get rid of until further notice? Because I need to free up as much income as possible. So to really go through and make sure that there are no discretionary expenses that you don't need, or those things that are on auto pay because we can set them and forget them, that we're not using at all, to make sure we lower our expenses, and we can use that to build our emergency fund at this time, and to like kind of be ramping up that emergency fund in light of the uncertainty. And then the other thing is to not be afraid to ask for help. So whether it's calling the credit card company and saying, I can't afford to pay, or I've been a really good customer, can you lower my interest rate during this time? People are putting their mortgages on deferral. There's all sorts of different programs and things and discounts that are being offered during this time. Don't be too proud to say that I need help, or to ask for them to lower something in the short term so that you can make sure you're okay for the long term.
I agree. I know somebody personally who the mortgage company came to them and said, for the next 3 months, we don't need your payments. We're going to add them on to the end. And the person can well afford to make their payments, but they're saying, look, I'm going to stack my money right now. I'm going to keep it with me because I'm going to be making these mortgage payments for the next, I think they're like 15 years in a loan. I'm going to be making it for the next 15 years. We'll give it to the company at the end, right? Like keep your money, so that you can be protected in times like this, because unfortunately, we know that this is not going to end in the next month. Like this is probably another 6. I hope it's sooner, but we just don't know.
So typically we transition here to the last segment of the show called The Last Drop, and what I typically do is ask for any insight on resources and things that you particularly use. I think you kind of all encompass that.
You can give us more, but we have another.
You mentioned a lot, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up and at least ask, because I know it's probably weighing on everybody's shoulders and they want to just bite at the bit to ask you. Can you please share some of your experiences from the Olympics? And
some story that you had, if you're willing.
Yeah, so I'll share. I feel like there's one story that kind of embodies what the Olympic Games is all about. So in my 4th Olympic Games, as it was my first Winter Games as a bobsledder, 2 days prior to the competition. So the Olympic Games are getting ready to start, and we wreck our sled at the finish line. So we had a great run. We were finished, and something happened. I don't know if something got caught in our sled or what, but we were kind of spinning out of control in the finish line. We crashed into a wall and totaled our sled. So a bobsled cost around $80,000. We didn't go with 6 or 8 sleds. Each person had one sled, and that was it. We had 3 drivers.
What do these things make? That's crazy. 80 grand.
80 grand for a bobsled. Exactly. And now we're USA 1 sled, which means we're the favorite to win on, of Team USA. And we're like kind of number 1, number 2 contenders. Like it's going to be really close between us and the girl that actually ended up getting gold. So this is a huge deal. Like our opportunity to compete is gone 48 hours prior to the Olympic Games. Well, we did bring a prototype sled that had been used in the previous years, and it was all new technology is the other thing. So we unveiled these new sleds. It's not sleds we had been using for 50 years that everybody knew we had new mechanics. Like it was just a lot. Long story short is we had to steal the sled from on display at the USA House, which is a place where like American families go to hang out during the Olympic Games. So we had to steal it from there, like where people were just using it for photo ops, take the parts out of it, and rebuild our sled in 24 hours.
Wow.
It was the most unbelievable thing ever. I don't know what we would have done if they were not able to rebuild it. So we get on the ice that day. So the last practice before the games, and we're pooping bricks, for lack of a better term.
It's a prototype. Come on.
Exactly. We've literally, they built it in 24 hours, so it was rushed. It's new mechanics. It's new. Everything is just like everything that could go wrong had gone wrong.
You won gold. I'm gonna lose it if you do.
Right. So we go and we get on the ice, and we don't even push that day. We just like kind of get in the sled, which without pushing, it means it's like a lot less speed. So you have a lot more ability to navigate. So we just kind of did like a practice run to see like what's going to happen. We had the fastest time of the day without pushing. And it was just like the most unbelievable, like, oh my goodness, I don't know how we pulled this off. But the thing that was really cool was we got down, so it's basically top of a mountain, you slide down an ice chute and you get to the bottom. You put your sled on a truck and then you ride back to the top of the mountain. So we get back to the top with our sled, and everyone is standing at the edge of the dock cheering for us. It was as if we had won the Olympic Games right then and there.
Really?
And it was all our competitors. It's their coaches. It was every country. People just wanted us to have the opportunity to compete because they knew that without us being in the race, it wasn't going to be the same race, and that we deserved that opportunity to either, show up and win or lose, or, have our chance. And
You're never
for
gonna
me,
forget that.
it was
That's
better
incredible.
than any moment. Yeah.
You're never gonna forget it. That's amazing.
Wow. I'm visualizing you just getting to the top.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right. It's like the music, you hear like the music playing.
Slow motion.
Yeah, you probably
it's
felt
really like something out of a
body.
movie. Like,
Wow.
That's great. Well, first of all, we want to thank you so much for coming on, because somebody like you with the experience you have is just really, really valuable for our audience members. And I want you to give the opportunity to just, how people can reach out to you if they are looking for a financial planner or somebody to help out with their student loans. What's the best way to get in contact with you if you're willing?
yeah. So, I mean, the thing I would say is you've got to be willing to invest in yourself. We talked about investing in the market, investing in general today, but getting organized finances is an investment in yourself. So you can do that by getting your own education, seeking the help of somebody who is knowledgeable, and then also making the financial investment of saying that this expertise is valuable and worth paying for. If you have student loans, I would say it is 3,000 times over worth it, what we charge for that 1-hour consultation to change your student loan trajectory and to really understand the numbers behind what's appropriate for you, and how you may be wasting money right now by just kind of paying the minimum and setting them and forgetting them. Yep. There are too many ways to optimize your finances not to take advantage of understanding the numbers behind how to best optimize your finances. So if you're looking for student loan advice, you go to studentloanplanner.com.
Cool.
And if you're looking for help with all aspects of your finances, including your student loans, then you can check me out at worth-winning.com. And so, like I said, I really pride myself on not talking down to clients, kind of keeping it just normal. I show up in my t-shirt.
Does that shirt say invested?
It does.
Oh, there we go.
That's awesome.
Love it.
But yeah, it's this idea, you think of it as like a personal trainer. You didn't get out of shape overnight. You're not going to get in shape overnight. And that you need the accountability of having someone to make that workout program for you. You value their advice, that they're going to create a customized plan for you. Then, that's when working with me would be a good idea. I want someone that is as engaged in the process as I am going to be for them, because it only works if we work together. So I would say that it's also something that is very much worth your time, worth your money, and worth, the investment that I've made in getting the expertise to be able to share it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sports right there teach you that. You got to work together, and having somebody that's on your team, looking at your finances as if they were their own. I don't know if you could beat that. Yeah. Well, anyway, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, but thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. This is going to be an episode that people are able to replay and just get so much value from. Anything else, Ryan?
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Truly, truly appreciate you. You have an amazing story. You're an awesome person. So
yeah.
We're very thankful to have you on.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, guys.
You got it. We'll talk to you soon, Lauryn.